Well, good morning and welcome, everybody. Let me just start by thanking some of my fellow senators who are joining me today. Of course, Coach Tuberville, Senator Justice, and Senator Ricketts. Thank you for all joining us. And you might be asking why I chose them. It's because we all have a Big 12 connection. I want to point out that, of course, Coach coached in the Big 12, and West Virginia is now in the Big 12. I'm still trying to understand those cowbells. They should be outlawed because they're so noisy. And waiting for that story.
I mean, we'd really be disappointed about that now.
If it had a good governor, they'd have away with it.
And of course, Senator Ricketts.
We don't need to get into all this like that.
And of course, Senator Ricketts, an original Big 8 team, so I still root for Nebraska, whoever they're playing, as long as it's not a Kansas school. So I appreciate you all joining me, and also want to acknowledge my staff, my Ledge team, and my comms team for putting this together. And really, I sincerely thank the press that came out today and helping us to tell this story. I'm grateful for you being here today. I'm going to start with my story. So I was born and raised on a farm. My first job off the farm was at a sale barn outside of El Dorado, Kansas. A sale barn every Saturday. The farmers bring in their cattle. We would sell 1,000 head, 2,000, 3,000 head on a Saturday. A 12-hour day would be a short day there. Many days, my brother and I worked 24, 36 hours at a time. But the greatest thing I looked forward to was that time and a half after 8 hours. And I just remember like it was yesterday, I was making $2.30 an hour, was the standard wage there at the sale barn. And by the way, this was a danger job. It was a dirty job. It was in the cold. It was in the wind. It was in the heat as well. But that time and a half overtime really incentivized a young person who was looking forward to buying his first car. But to my surprise, that first time I got my paycheck with that overtime, I was shocked to see how much money the government was taking out of my paycheck. Through college, I worked at our oil refinery, $6 an hour. I'd made it big time, but again, always shop for that overtime when I could make $9 an hour. So that's my story. I want to share the story of a couple other people here from back home. The first is Steve Hewitt, and Steve is here in his UPS uniform. This is a quote from Steve. He works for the Teamsters Local 696 in Topeka, Kansas, obviously a UPS driver. And this is a quote from Steve. Working overtime means I'm spending more time on the road and away from my family. But thanks to this bill, being able to work more of being able to keep more of my paycheck in my pocket would be life-changing, not just for me, but for blue-collar workers across the nation. So thanks, Steve, for that quote. And the other one is from Brandon Schweitzer, over here in his uniform, a corrections officer at the Shawnee County Department of Corrections, Teamsters Local 696 in Topeka, Kansas again. And this is a quote from Brandon. As the chief steward and a corrections specialist at the Shawnee County Department of Corrections, I believe being able to deduct overtime pay from taxes would allow workers to better afford day-to-day living. New legislation like this would also allow workers like me to possibly contribute more to our deferred compensation plan. So those are just two examples. I don't know about the gentleman behind me, but when I was on the campaign trail, I heard people saying, we want a senator who's going to fight for us. And the people that were constantly reaching out to me were hardworking men and women saying, we need someone fighting for us, someone fighting for Main Street, not just Wall Street. And I'm so proud of President Trump that he's made this a priority to be the president for the hardworking Americans, for people who carry a lunch pail to work. And that's why I'm so proud to introduce this bill, the Overtime Wages Tax Relief Act. And just briefly, I'll outline what it does. Again, it's a tax deduction for overtime wages, but it sets some guardrails around it. So it caps it at $10,000 for individuals and $20,000 for married couples. And then there's a phase out. There's a deduction phase out if your income reaches $100,000 for an individual, $200,000 for married couples as well. So it's reduced $50 for every $1,000 in income. So there's guardrails around it. This is one of President Trump's priorities. If it's one of President Trump's priorities, then it's one of my priorities as well. You know what this would mean to a family, and I'll turn it over to Coach Tuberville. Look, the Trump tax cuts, if we don't make that permanent, families back home are going to get a tax increase of $2,000 a year. So if we let this go off the books, this is going to cost Kansas taxpayers $2,000 a year. Potentially, for a person that's working overtime, they could save another $4,000 on taxes if this legislation is signed into law by the president. So to me, this is like a $6,000 opportunity for hardworking folks back home. You're making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year back home. $6,000 is nothing to sneeze at. That will go a long ways in taking care of Joe Biden's inflation.